De'Aaron Fox has finally been traded to the Spurs just as many had anticipated. This wasn't a question of if, but when, as Fox had been very vocal about his desire to play alongside Wemby, and now he's gotten his wish. The trade was a 3-team deal involving the Spurs, Kings, and Bulls. The Spurs acquired De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin, while the Kings received Zach LaVine, Sidi Sissoko, 3 first-round picks, and 2 second-round picks. Meanwhile, the Bulls landed Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and a 2025 pick via the Spurs. My initial reaction was pure shock. I was just winding down for the night when I saw an article about it, and at first I couldn't tell if it was a real trade or just another mock scenario. All I saw was Zach LaVine traded for De'Aaron Fox, and for a split second my heart sank. I thought Fox had been sent to the Bulls, which would have put him in an even worse situation than he had in Sacramento, but once I realized it was a 3-team deal, it made much more sense. This trade really highlights how much the Spurs believe in Fox. They didn't have to make this move because there will be plenty of stars eager to team up with Wemby. Even if they had their sights set on Fox as their long-term point guard, they could have just waited and signed him as an unrestricted free agent in 2026. Instead, they chose to trade for him now, meaning they'll have to commit to an extension. But given that Fox actually wants to be in San Antonio, it's almost certain that he'll re-sign. But most of all, I'm happy for Fox. He's finally in a situation he wants to be in. Now, the real question for the Spurs isn't whether Wemby can live up to being a franchise cornerstone. He already looks like he's on track to becoming an all-time great. The bigger concern is whether Fox can be good enough to be a second option and at least complement him well. Look, just like Jokic needed Jamal Murray for his championship run, San Antonio's best player needs a co-star. That's what makes a pairing of Fox and Wemby so exciting. Their 2-man game has the potential to be special. Fox has never been an elite 3-point shooter, holding a career average of 33% from deep. But Wemby, on the other hand, can stretch the floor exceptionally well, not just for a big, but for any player in general. When you put them together, the ways that they can create high-quality looks for each other are endless. I keep running through different scenarios in my head, and I'm sure Spurs fans are doing the same, especially considering how little San Antonio had to give up to get Fox. I mean, how did this happen? They didn't even have to include Stephon Castle in the deal, which I thought the Kings would insist on. Instead, Sacramento opted to make it a 3-team trade, bringing in the Bulls just to acquire Zach LaVine. And my question is, why? What's the point of getting LaVine? To me, this signals that the Kings aren't willing to put their pride aside. Instead of taking a step back and truly rebuilding, they seem content with being a good but not great playoff team. It feels like all the years spent rebuilding, drafting Fox in 2017, developing him, were leading to this moment. But now their ceiling appears to be this upcoming season, with the core of LaVine, DeRozan, and Sabonis as the best that they could put together. When a team trades away a player like Fox, who was supposed to be their franchise cornerstone, it usually signals a full reset, a rebuild of the rebuild. But instead, Sacramento seems to be doubling down on Doug Christie's vision and believing in what a 29-year-old LaVine, a 35-year-old DeRozan, and a 28-year-old Sabonis can accomplish together. The Bulls did what they needed to, moving on from LaVine and clearing his contract off the books. Now they can fully commit to their rebuild, especially once they find a way to move Vucevic, hopefully by the trade deadline. So it at least kind of makes sense for them. But back to the Spurs. Right now they're sitting at the 12th seed with a 21-25 record, 4 games below 500. Interestingly, they're still behind the Kings, who hold the 10th seed. However, I believe the Spurs have a solid foundation to surpass both the Warriors and the Kings in the standings, securing that 10th spot and potentially making some noise in the play-in tournament. I'm not ready to predict how far that they'll go just yet. That'll depend on how they perform in the upcoming games. If I'm remembering correctly, their next 5 matchups are against the Grizzlies, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Magic, and the Wizards. That stretch presents a real opportunity to rack up wins, with only Memphis and Orlando posing a real challenge. But more importantly, the goal should be getting Fox acclimated to the team as quickly as possible. Of course, there's a limit to how successful they can be this season, but the real focus should be on building for the future. You see, the Spurs are in a rare position. They have a top 5 to 10 player in the NBA on a rookie scale contract, which gives them the financial flexibility to build a strong supporting cast around him. If they can move Harrison Barnes' contract $18 million this season, $19 million next season, they'll even have more cap space to work with. That opens the door for major moves in the offseason. If the season ended today, the 2025 free agent class would include Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, and Brandon Ingram as some guys who would be intriguing fits alongside Wemby. Not saying that they should necessarily target those guys, but they have time to figure out the right moves. The key will be maximizing their cap space before Wemby's inevitable extension kicks in for the 2027 through 28 season, and a lot of moves are going to be made, but bringing in De'Aaron Fox was just a first step. But what do you think? Is De'Aaron Fox a right long-term point guard for the Spurs? Tell me in the comments section below. Until next time, peace.